Okay, Acts 17, let's bow for prayer, and then let's get started. Father, that you would increase our knowledge of our Lord and Savior, and that we would grow in grace as a result of it, and be able to use this for your glory and for your honor now, in Christ's name. Amen. We'll begin at verse 16, is where we ended. We ended.
That's it.
You know what's coming up here in verse 18, philosophers, Epicureans, and Stoicks. Now there are babblers there. Well, let's needing the word. Verse 16. Oh, this is the beginning of our next part of the outline. And that is our fourth one, needing the word. The fourth paragraph marking. So those that need it. And it begins with idolaters. Therefore, it was certain it was wholly given to idolaters. So there's idolaters, philosophers, Epicureans, and Stoics involved here. And I think we did look up this Colossians 2:8. The theme of Colossians, just for repetition, the theme of Colossians is chapter 2, verse 9. It would be the deity of the Lord Jesus Christ. Just to kind of go over that is the theme of the book of Colossians. I think we ended there last week. For in him dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead bodily. That's the theme of Colossians. But the one that we are using on this idolatry, philosophers, Epicureans, so on, is the one before that. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy, vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. And that can happen, folks. And, it's not thus saith the Lord, it's thus saith your opinion or whatever. 1 Corinthians, why don't we look up these verses? Worldly wisdom, 1 Corinthians chapter 1. 1 Corinthians chapter 1. I think this is where it talks about worldly wisdom. Verses 18 through 21. For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and will bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this world? Hath not God made foolish the wisdom of this world? So there's the wisdom of the world. For after that, the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God. It pleased God by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. All right, so we have the wisdom of the world. We brought up this thing about being wise, and we were bringing it up in our Proverbs that we're doing, Proverbs chapter 1, about those that are sometimes in charge are just incompetent people. And just, they can be in charge, but it doesn't mean, especially in our governments. They're talking about draining the swamp. And I gave you some examples when they did the training for the hook and ladder in Macedonia. The whole hook and ladder went over. Now, who's in charge of that? When they came to put the fire out in the house, our house, they were arguing amongst, did anybody check these fire? How do you work this fire extinguisher? I ended up putting the fire out. It was just weird. Just weird. Just because they're in positions doesn't mean that they're qualified. Doesn't mean that. They get their time in. And there's the wisdom of the world. That's really what governs our government. What is the main goal of the government? Control.
Collect
money. Collecting money. And one of my neighbors, he had a fraction of $1 billion business, and he said the goal of this government, this back in no later than the mid-60s, he said, is to get every woman in America working. Why? To get those payroll taxes, because it's just a money-hungry thing. And it's just helped to destroy America.
No.
Wrong, that's right.
it's not the best answer.
Well, what? Give me the best answer.
When they got both the daddy and the mommy working, then the state gets to take care of the little kiddies.
Well,
and bring
that's
them up.
true too.
They
Yeah,
make
I
big
said
little time
it destroys the family. I did say that though.
Well, I didn't hear you, sorry.
Yeah, well, because all right, Romans, well, here, we're at 1 Corinthians 2, verse 6. Howbeit we speak wisdom among them that are perfect, yet not the wisdom of this world. So there's the wisdom of this world, and nor are the princes of this world. Romans 1, verse 22. This is Romans 1, 22. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. All right, so what is the sin talked about in Romans 1? What do we normally go to? Homosexuality. You know, my cousin, no, my niece was over yesterday visiting my mother, who's living with us, and there was a program. She likes to watch this thing about these junior kids cooking. Yeah, these junior children, and they get graded, and somebody gets chopped junior. I don't know what it is. I've never seen it before, but it was interesting. Well, I had come back from the Grayson's birthday party. I came back and to watch I think it was at that time. I lost track of time. Anyway, anybody hot?
I'm sweating.
I am too. I'm just cooking. Well, take the thing and bump it just a little hair down. Just a little hair down. And I said, is that a guy or a girl? I mean, I didn't know what it was. Purple hair and the others all were straight. And I said, what is that, a guy or a girl? And she said, oh,
both.
And I said, I don't even know what it has to do with this. Who knows if it has anything to do. And she said, well, it's called what'd she call it?
Gender neutral or something?
Oh, there you go. No.
Transgender.
No.
Gender bending.
No. Gender, this must be a new term. Gender fluid. I couldn't get the first word, gender.
That means they're all wet.
Gender fluid. I said, well, years ago when we were kids, it was just called queer. She called it gender fluid. I don't know. Must be some new term. Anyway, the wisdom of this world. So anyway, it is a sin, folks. And then we count it as that they can't get saved, which is not true, folks. They can get saved. And remember what Romans is the need for salvation. These people can get saved. The need for salvation depends on where you are trained in. Now, we were at Bible Blues. They taught that it was there. Generally, Baptists teach it's too late. I don't feel that way, because if you look at Romans chapter 1 and you go down here to the end of Romans 1, I'm not there. Romans chapter 1, you look at it. We have being filled with all, verse 29, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit. I mean, he's now naming every sin. It's because he goes for the worst, but he names it all. And say, oh, it's because these people, and you can include ourselves in someplace, in one of these sins, that they need salvation, right? All right, enough of that. We covered those verses. But philosophers are superstitious. Back to Acts 17, verse 22. There are two superstitious philosophers. We went to a funeral, and I brought it up, and I can't remember what it was. It was Roman Catholic. We went to this funeral, and we were talking to, I was talking to my, who I grew up with, was my best friend, who married my wife's sister, and they stayed Catholic. She's a Catholic. My wife then got saved. But they're still Catholic, and there was friends there. And then there's this woman that came over, and she's a staunch Catholic, and man, she was talking about if you leave the jar out of money, I don't know what she was saying, that you're going to have good luck, and it was just the weirdest stuff. And that brought it up here, and then those that were Catholics said, yeah, Catholics are like that, very superstitious. They create these things in their mind. If you do this, somebody was telling me if you take the statue of some saint and bury it in the yard, and you'll sell your house, or
Yeah.
is that a true statement? Not that that's true, but it's superstition.
Yeah, I'm told you that.
You
Saint
told me
Anne or
that.
something like that.
Okay. And something about don't bury it upside down. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they're superstitious. Agnostic, verse 23. Now, folks, I didn't know these words as I learned these words as we go along. They're to the unknown God. They believe there could be a God. They don't say there is no God, but they say there could be a God. To the unknown God. And agnostic is, are there any atheists? There's no atheists. How do they put it? There's no atheists in what?
A foxhole.
In foxholes. For God's sake. Right? Until you're actually in a situation like that, you can only imagine until you're in that. Ignorant. They're ignorant of the truth. In verse, they have their devotions, whom therefore ye ignorantly worship. All right, what were they willingly ignorant of? Just quoting a verse. What are these kind of people? It does phrase it that way. They're willingly ignorant. New Testament. No, willingly ignorant of the flood. Be 2 Peter chapter 3. They were willingly ignorant. Vain talk. Since this is what they believe, they sit around and talk about it. Nothing else but either to tell or to hear some new thing. So it's vain talk. It's talk that's going nowhere. And they're endlessly blabbing about it.
You're dumb on purpose.
And it's done on purpose?
Dumb on purpose.
Dumb on purpose? Oh, dumb on purpose.
Yeah.
They have something new. And the word for today that they attach is the word neo in its place. All right, so not New Age, neo. Neo-Nazis. What other neos are there? Neo-Nazi? I can't think of some right now.
Neoconservative.
You can put neo to anything.
Neo-Christian, pardon? A neophyte. They attach this word
It's
to it.
just the Philistines pretending that they're conservative or Christians or stuff, but they ain't changed.
Okay, Athens, and this is where it's taking place, it's the cultural capital of the world at the time. What Paul saw then drives him into action. Now, folks, there are things that take place in society that should drive us to action. Some people are driven to action. There are shakers and movers. Driven to action. You're standing, now in this weather, you could be standing out there. If you stand out there for a long time, what's going to happen? You might faint. But you could be, let's say you're in the bank. I'll give you an example. You're in the bank and you're standing in line. And you don't have the lines like you used to have. Us that have gray hair, we know what the lines were like. You filled it out by hand. It was entered in your passbook by hand. It always seemed to work better. But you could stand in line and somebody might faint. Now, what do most people do? Step over or step on them? Well, they look on, they're onlookers. But then somebody is then, though, driven to act. In other words, somebody must do something about it. Somebody must do something about it. One time, our dog, this is our first dog. We had 5 dogs. I'm not a, we had dogs. It's okay. My friend he did beagles. We'd take that beagle hunting. He hunted for every hunter but us. It would take off and hunt for every hunter, and the whole time was, where's the dumb dog, you know? So anyway, our dog got something caught in its mouth, a steak bone, back in its jaw, way back in there. And the dog, it was the nicest dog we had, but I wasn't friends with the dog. I mean, it's a dog. You know, and it had a French name with me, Dog. That was its name for me. D-O-G spells dog. Every dog has a French name, Dog. If you pronounce it that way, Dog. But where did the dog come for help? It came to the one that hated it the most. Well, no, everybody was there. But somehow the dog must be smarter. It must be smarter than a horse. It knew that I could help it.
He trusted.
It must have. I don't know why, but it came to me. It didn't go to the kids, didn't go to the wife. It came to me. It must have known that I could. And then now the bone is in there. Now what are you going to do? I reached in there. I figured the dog wasn't going to bite me. I reached in there, way in there, as far as I could get it. I got it out of there. I got it out of that dog's mouth. There's some people are called to action. And most people just stand around and watch. They say that one of the reasons why people stand around and watch is because they think they're watching TV. That they're watching this ongoing thing. I don't know how true that can be. But I would say it's always been like that. I gave you this illustration of a relative that was a policeman who got in an accident in the late 30s. There was a routine stop. He got shot, and they pushed him down a ravine. And he had his flashlight. And men were stopping, people were stopping, but no one stopped. A woman stopped and went down in there to help him. This is in the late 30s. So some people are called to they get their spirit stirred within them. Now in this case, obviously, it's because of idolatry, the philosophers, demonic activity, and he did not wait for help. The help that he called for Silas and Timotheus to come in verse 15, because they were asked to come, Silas and Timotheus. He didn't wait for that. He just jumped into action. All right, and so we are called to jump into action. Okay, and if we're in the Lord's army, it's just like the army. There are some people who are called into action. You know, the leader of the troops. You know. Verse 17. Therefore disputed he in the synagogue with the Jews and with the devout persons. People are devoted to this stuff, folks. They are highly devoted to it. They believe this stuff. They believe this stuff. And in the market daily with them that and there's no lack of them today. They're just as much around. They're devout persons in the market daily with them that met with him. So Christianity, the point here, Christianity is not just a Sunday religion. It is a daily thing. All right, so the Bereans, Acts 17:11, were daily in their Bible. Let's go ahead and turn to the Psalm 55. We don't necessarily have to turn to every verse. Let's say we use 2 here. Psalm 55, verse 17, daily prayer. Psalm 55, verse 17. What's the first thing to go in a Christian's life? What's the hardest thing to do? Pray. Right? If you want to fall asleep, what do you do? Yeah. Pray or read your Bible. Man, you want to just crash right out. When you fall asleep, you're supposed to. What does the world do? They count what? Sheep. We say, talk to the shepherd of the sheep, right? So 55. 17, evening and morning and at noon will I pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice. Now you may say that's the Jewish thing, the 3 times in the day, praying and so on. But it's done daily. It's done daily. Witnessing daily, as it says right in that verse. Acts chapter 5, we'll go back there for verse 42. Daily. And daily in the temple, in every house, they cease not to teach and preach Jesus Christ. Now, they did it in the temples because that's what they were familiar with. They were in Jerusalem, and they grew up with this. This is where they're going. It's like when you got saved, you went back, you go back to the, you went back to the Catholic Church and you witnessed to your friends. And that's the easiest way to lose your friends. If you're a lost person, not all people, but some lost people, they get saved, then where do you go to go preach to your friends? Where were your friends gathered? In the bar, in the bowling alley, that's the easiest way to lose your friends. Just go right back in there. We went and witnessed in the bar down here, and it turned out we knew everybody in there. We knew everybody that was already in there, and so we had a nice chat with them. Passed out the tracts. Daily surrender. Picking up your cross what? Daily. I believe that's the verse. Luke 9, verse 23. Daily. Daily. Let's see. And he said to them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily and follow me. All right, it's just like any other thing. If it's a carnal thing, men get up out of bed daily. Why? To go to work. Why? Because their stomach is empty. That's a good reason, and that's a biblical. That is a biblical reason to take care of their wife and kids. Those that quit, man, it's like the treadmill of life. The moment you're off that treadmill of life, there's another young buck ready to get up on the treadmill of life. And then we should enjoy daily, who daily loadeth me with blessings. So we should receive blessings and look for those blessings each and every day. Psalm 68, we just picked out things that are daily. 68 verse 19. Blessed be the Lord who daily loadeth us with benefits. All right. Exodus 20. What do we find in Exodus 20? What's in Exodus 12?
10 Commandments.
The Passover is Exodus 12. What's in Exodus 20?
10 Commandments.
The 10 Commandments. What's in Deuteronomy, I think 5 and 6?
Recite those 10 Commandments.
The saying the commandments over, right? The second giving of the law. They give the commandments once more. All right?
Yes.
Folks, there's been people, I know they're in church for 20, 30 years. They have no idea. No idea. And it's shocking. All right, so Exodus 20, verse 3. If we're talking about idolatry, what would be that commandment? Thou shalt... No, that's the 2 commandments, which cover the 10. Thou shalt... I think that's the second commandment.
Have no other God.
I think the first commandment, I think that would be verse 3. Thou shalt have no other gods beside me. Right, no other gods.
Before,
Pardon?
I don't know. You said before, I forget.
Exodus 32. What takes place in Exodus 32? What happens there?
Golden calf.
The golden calves. Yes, you're right. So Moses is on the mountaintop and they said, well, what's happened to this guy? And so what did they do? They took the gold earrings, everybody gave their jewelry, and they threw it in the fire, and out popped the golden calf.
Amazing, isn't it?
Isn't it amazing, right? He said, boy, I'll pop the calf, right? So they make an idol. So idolatry is everywhere in America. If we go to, let's say, go to Romans 1. I know this was taught when we were early on. And I'm not saying... Maybe it is true. Maybe I should go there. If we go to Romans 1, verse 23, Change the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. That's what the pastor taught, making idols in America. Name some with these animals. Birds, four-footed beasts, creeping things. The Cincinnati say it out loud. Bengals. The St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, he went right there. The Philadelphia
Experiment.
Eagles.
Oh.
I named some others. I can't think of them. Well, the Chicago Bears.
And the Cubbies.
The Detroit, the Chicago Cubs. The Detroit Lions. And on it goes.
Florida Marlins.
Oh, the Florida Marlins. What about the Arizona?
Diamondbacks.
The Diamondbacks.
Snakes.
The Snakes. Now, he used that as an illustration. But truly, sports is an idol. Money is an idol. Sex is an idol. Name some others in America. Work? Yeah, work. People can make it an idol.
Your home could be, your car.
And the house can be an idol. The car can be an idol. Your family. Your children. On and on it goes.
Stamp collecting.
Stamp collecting. Coin collecting. I have a coin collection. Now, I might have a couple things left. But that all went to my brother-in-law after I got saved. I got rid of it. Was it of any value? Are coins valuable?
Yeah.
Now, you can collect a coin for artistic reasons.
Mhm.
There is art to that. And well, most people want I would say that's a secondary thing. The art is they collect it. Not only that it's curious and artistic, but for value. And then when I learned about coins, I called the dealer, the guy that writes the article in the PD, and he set me straight about coins. There's very few serious collectors in America, and they had to spend like $50,000 a year on the coins. And it's rare coins, perfect. It's a kind that there's only 20 minted of it, and so on. Anyway, but all those things can be idols. All right, stirred, verse 16. This is the first time Paul's spirit was stirred in him. Now, it could have been stirred before, but where it's recorded, where it's actually recorded. He's not just preaching, but he's also disputing with them. In verse 17 of Acts 17, and he's doing it publicly and in the market. Acts 20, I have a cross-reference, Acts 20:20. And how I kept back nothing that was profitable unto you, but have showed you and have taught you publicly and from house to house. All right, that would be with believers. This here was non-believers. And in the market, where you would go and, you went to Walmart. Walmart wasn't in the building, it was out of the building. Walmart, Target, it was the strip mall, right, in the marketplace. And what are they generally selling there? Maybe everything. But you would normally think of food. They were selling food there. All right, verse 18. Then certain philosophers of the Epicureans and the Stoicks and so on. The Epicureans. There is, now we were taught this. I don't know if you can go to the yellow pages. When I say the yellow pages, I know you have to think how I'm thinking. I know you got your phone. You got your clicker, your thumbs are moving, and you can find out where it is in Cleveland. But we were taught that, this is before the clickers, that there is in Cleveland the Epicurean Club. I didn't look it up, but we were told that it's the eat, drink, and be merry club. And they do use these words. So sometimes when you hear these words, if you're not taught what it means, it just goes over your head and my head. We don't pay any attention to it. But it's the eat, drink, and be merry club. If it feels good, do it. It's a person that's devoted to sensuous pleasure, luxurious living. The rich man that died went to hell. He was into luxurious living. 2 Timothy 3:4. 2 Timothy 3:4. This would be the talking about the end times of what they're like, that the last days perilous time shall come. 2 Timothy 3 verse 4. It says, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. Lovers of pleasures. Well, I have to be honest. The only thing... Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Is it hedonistic then?
Yeah, I guess. The only pleasurable thing I want right now is to get out of this heat and into air conditioning. Yeah. Right? Ecclesiastes, this is the great experiment by Solomon. Ecclesiastes, and he sought it all and had it all, and he said it was all vanity. Chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. Therefore enjoy pleasure, behold, to prove thee with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure. We don't have to read any further than that. He sought it all, found out that's a waste of time too. All right, a Stoic. I know that maybe I was taught that at a young age. Not that I was given the definition, but let's say we're in a gathering and my father would say, well, he's very stoic. What would that be? And I would look and, oh, he's stoic. Unemotional. No expression. Serious-minded. Can you think of something else? Unemotional, serious-minded, no expression on the face, not happy, not sad, just kind of staring. Stoic.
The same in every situation.
Same in every situation. Even-keeled. Yeah, I'm not getting excited about anything.
You can smack him in the finger with a hammer and you just go, ow.
Yeah, and he goes, ow. Yeah. Stoic. So it's the opposite of the Epicurean. One who is unaffected by pleasures. Men should be free from pleasures. He renounces the comforts of life. Well, I'm not renouncing air conditioning, folks, if it's available. Man, we lived 60-some years without it, folks. We lived 64 years without air conditioning. And for 30 of those years, we were too dumb to get a fan. that was extra dumb. All right, verses 18 through 19. We have the Stoics. They're what will this babbler? Meaning, they're just as equal a babbler as they. And you got now they consider him a babbler. Others, he seemeth to be a setter forth of strange new gods, which meant, boy, they're willing to hear this because we haven't heard this before. Because they want to hear some new thing. They want to hear this new doctrine in verse 19. And they want to hear this. They saw Paul as just another philosopher. They referred to Paul's presentation of Christ as just some new doctrine. Hey, listen, if you've never heard it before, it is new, right? It's got to be new sometime. Right? If you're born in this world, you got to learn all this somewhere along the line, right? Be exposed to it. And some people are never exposed to it. And so it is being presented, and they think it's some strange new God. And the gospel to them was just babbling. All right, the Tower of Babel, this getting it all together. This and that is coming up, folks. The Tower of Babel, just babbling, where all were gotten together. So God confuses their tongue, and that is where we preach of the Tower of Babel. Is Genesis chapter what?
11.
Chapter 11. The dividing of the nations is chapter what? Pardon? Where they name the name Peleg. What, Genesis chapter what? It's 10. Dividing of the nations, this history of that is Peleg is in there, and they name all these names off, and that's when they had the continent break. All right? And then, oh, by the way, of this big story that's told in generality, specifically they take one of the incidents that take place in Genesis 10 and then give the details of it in Genesis 11. That's the Tower of Babel. Then they're all set. What's the easiest way to separate them then? By moving the land out. And, if you didn't know how to swim, and then the next thing you know, things are moving apart. And so, and if you go down here, look at verse 26, and hath made of one blood all nations of men. Now, we know we have different types of blood, but you cannot mix man's blood with animal blood, or vice versa. But you can mix men's blood with men's blood if it's the same type. For to dwell on all the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed, and the bounds of their habitation. Now, we interpret that as the boundary of the shoreline here. And the reason was it that they should seek the Lord, if haply they might feel after him and find him. So the great getter together today is who? Who's getting it all together? Now this is what we would be taught 30 years ago. Who's getting it all together? Huh? What did you say? Oh, you don't want to say it? Well, the Pope. One person going to get all the people unified, like the Euro. Where all the nations, there's no borders. Flood them across. We're all one people. Oh, we sang that song, that dumb song we sang in the 60s. Up with people. You meet them wherever you go. It's no new thing. We're all getting together. Up with people.
I knew some girl that sang for them.
That sang for them?
Yeah.
Does that group still go around? That was 50 years ago.
No.
That's a dead issue. Well, they're going to get it all together again. All together under one umbrella. Well, so that they won't happily look after God. They'll look after the wrong God. They're going to all look after the Antichrist. And God moves slowly. I mean, at whatever God's speed is, we want to rush this rapture up. Hey, let's get moving here, God. But it's going. You know what's going to happen when it happens. Yeah. So it's all coming under one umbrella, and they're gonna happily find the God, but it's going to be the wrong God. So God is the separator. He divided the light from the darkness. He segregates the light from the darkness. He segregates that. It's not that one is better than another, but he is the great segregationist. He doesn't say, well, these are inferior to these people, but he segregates them. If you look at pictures of Europeans from 80 years ago, the Slovaks didn't look like the Czechs, and I don't know what nations were. They didn't look like the Germans. They didn't look like the English. But now it's all one big mixture, and they all look alike. See? But God is the great segregationist. He's not saying, well, this group is better than this. The whole thing is that they would seek him. Now, how does that work? I don't know, but that's what it says. But now they're getting it all together so that now they're all going to find the Antichrist. All right? And now listen, Billy Graham and their crowd, they quote these verses, but they won't go to the next verse. See, they quote the verse to prove, well, we're all getting it together. But they leave out the next verse. The reason for all that. All right, so the gospel to them was just babbling. And I'm sure the word babbling comes from the Tower of Babel. Jesus Christ to them was just some new strange God. All right, they give Paul the opportunity to preach Christ. Folks, when you're given the opportunity All right, since you want to talk, we'll give you a platform. What would you be tempted to do?
Take it home. They gave it to me.
Oh, well, a lot of people would be tempted, well, I hear my mother calling. They'd be tempted to chicken out. And when it was my turn, there was three of us. We were at Fagan's place, diagonal to Fagan's place, and there was three of us, and the guy that was building at your house, that guy, he organized this. He was done street preaching, and then the guy number 2 was street preaching, and I figured, 1, 2, 3. I'm pretty good at math. 2 was halfway done. I thought, well, what comes after 2? 3. I'm the third wheel. I'm the third guy. My time is coming up. And so he was done preaching, and then the hardest deceitful, my line was, my opener was the hardest deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? It came out, the desperation of the heart, it all came out wrong. But I still went on. I was so nervous. Really nervous. But when the opportunity comes, do it. They gave Paul the opportunity, and he was fruitful on it. All right, this verse 22. Now, verse 19 is Areopagus, is also called Mars Hill. From verse 19, that name that is called Mars Hill. Verse 22, the greatest of Greek philosophers. Oh, what we've learned in superstition and all things. It would be Socrates, Aristotle, Plato. Did I leave anybody out? I mean, is there somebody else you can think of? Those would be easily come to mind.
Plato.
I got Plato down. Wait, Confucius? We could put Confucius in there too. Pardon? Oh, Darwin. That would be a good one. A more modern one. Yeah, Darwin. What did I say? Confucius, Socrates, Aristotle, Plato. All right, so some neo-superstitions, evolution. Oh, that's the first illustration to believe men came from animals. Men came from. They do a movie on that. It's called The Island of Lost Souls. Anybody know it? You know what that is, yeah. Where they're operating on these people. All right, let's stop there. We're well over. We're going to start right there. Neo-superstitions. We'll start right there. I thought that was a telephone ringing. That's Tammy and that ding donger. Well, the kids love it. Whatever it is that's going on up there, they love it. Father, bless now the preaching of the Father in Christ's name. Amen. Preaching 15.